Welcome to another episode of Negotiate Your Best Life. I'm Rebecca Zung, and it is my honor and my pleasure to welcome my new friend, Lisa Bilyeu, to this show. She is an entrepreneur, a best-selling author, a global influencer, a supporter of women, a Wonder Woman herself. She is the founder of Quest and the global influencer of Women of Impact and the billion-dollar brand. And I am so excited to have her here because she's the #1 author of an amazing book that I just got to finish, which is Radical Confidence. And I'm so excited to dive into all of the tips and tricks that you offer, because you not only have this book, but you live it. You are it, because you went from being, when you talk about this housewife, you kind of had lost your power in over this 8-year period. But really, even kind of before that, in doing my research about you, in your relationship that you had prior to Tom. Yeah. And if you don't mind, I'd like to kind of go back to that, because a lot of the people that are in my community are in relationships where they have lost their power. And if you don't mind, I'd like to talk about that relationship. You had a 4-year relationship prior to Tom.
I did, yeah.
Would you mind talking about that?
No, not at all. People don't normally ask me about this, so thank you, actually, because it's such a big part of my story. And I think it's so relatable because so many of us get trapped. And I do process what would have happened if I hadn't have gotten out of that relationship. I wouldn't be where I am today. And that is a big part of why I do what I do, because I think about how many of us do get trapped in that moment. And we may live there for the rest of our lives. And so how do we break free? And so going back to, I was around 15 years old, I was bullied for my looks. I know that we share that story, and just being bullied for being different. And I got made fun of for like my nose, I got called Concord. I was, I don't know if you ever saw My Big Fat Greek Wedding, but like that young girl, like in her day when she was growing up Greek, everyone around her didn't look like me. And so I had like the unibrow, the frizzy hair, and I even had the braces. Like, talk about make it even worse. I had the braces that went all the way around the back of my head.
Headgear thing.
Headgear, yes.
Yeah.
And I've been looking for photos. I can't find any. I think because I told my mom to never take a photo of me.
No.
Yeah, I was so insecure. And so when I got to around 15, almost 16, I met this boy, and he fancied me, and he asked me on a date, and I was, just smitten because nobody had ever really shown me interest before. And that started the whole relationship with him, and it was very turbulent, and I didn't know how to put it into words at the time, and it was just up and down. It was screaming matches, yelling, shouting. He would push me. I would cry. I would run off, threaten to leave him. He would say he's sorry, and then I would go back to him. And this was just a cycle. And it was 4 years. And when I got to around 18, I left for university. And I remember, and I don't think I've ever told this story actually, I remember being at university, and it was like the first year, and he failed school. And so he just got, any job that he could find. And I'm in college, and I remember one day he drove all the way down to see me, and I thought he came all the way down to see me to surprise me, and I'm like, oh my God, he really loves me. But actually, he tried to catch me in the act because he thought I was cheating on him. Now, when you're in college, you've got boys coming in and out. I was sharing a dorm room, so I was with 5 other girls, so they were all having guys coming in and out. And so I guess he heard a guy's voice at some point, so he drove all the way down to try and catch me in the act. I just thought, oh bless, he loves me that much to care, to come all the way down, to drive all this way. And that's how much he loves me. So that's the mentality and the mindset that I had growing up of what relationships were like. And it wasn't until I think I started to build my own self-esteem, and being in college and being out of where I was brought up, that really became an eye-opening moment for me, because people appreciated my quirkiness and my differences, whereas when you were in high school, I was mocked for it. And so that, I think, helped me build my self-esteem a little, enough that when he started to act up, I started to push back. And as I was pushing back more and more, I found a bit of my power. Until I realized that he's not good for me. and he's just trying to hold me back. And I had these big dreams of being in movies, and I wanted to be in Hollywood, and he had no dreams like that. And I used to remember thinking, how am I going to be married to this guy and live in Hollywood? Like, it was really a conflict between the reality and my dream. And again, it didn't get to the point until I had really built my confidence. I started to notice the toxic behavior. And I remember so damn clearly, because he put so much fear into me, because he said to me one day as I was leaving, right, I had the confidence now, and I was like, I'm finally leaving you. And he said to me, no one's ever going to love you as much as I love you.
Mm.
And I remember him saying that. And in that moment, I was like, oh my God, what if he's right?
Oh.
But I thought, I can't, he's toxic. I didn't have that word, but I was like, he's just trying to use you, Lisa. He's trying to say things to hold you down. He's done this before. And that was the final moment that I ended up leaving. And, you know, you catch me now, I've been married for 21 years to a man who loves me more than life itself. And so in hindsight, it's like, of course, that was a manipulation tactic to keep me. It worked momentarily. But I finally left. And so what if I hadn't have left? What if I stayed with him? I wouldn't have obviously helped build Quest. I wouldn't have built Impact Theory. I wouldn't be here sitting with you. I wouldn't be able to really empower women. And so that pivotal moment is really what I live for. And, you know, you were just on my show and talking about those pivotal moments of how you end up just leaving and what holds people to stay and how we can empower women with tactics to leave. Because it wasn't like I felt great about myself. It wasn't like I was like, I'm going to show him I can have a man that's going to love me. No, I was like, oh my God, what if he's right? But Lisa, you still have to leave. And so how do we encourage women to keep leaving or to leave a toxic relation? What are those tactics to get out of your own way? And when I mean that, it's the emotion that maybe you don't feel good enough, the emotion of what if they're right?
Right. And what I found so powerful was when you were talking about it, you actually said that in those moments that he was bad, you found yourself thinking, that's not the real him.
Yes. Yeah. It's true. You convince yourself that this is just a bad moment. Like, I've seen him be wonderful. I've seen him buy me flowers. I've seen him do really romantic things. And so every time a bad thing would happen, you convince yourself it's just that moment. He's just going through a bad time. But the truth is, when the bad outweighs the good, 10-1, that's a big freaking alert. But because I felt so badly about myself, the moments that he would buy me flowers, he then just gave me enough, right? I think they call it breadcrumbing these days. They just like give you enough to then just keep going. And so in that one moment out of 10, again, when you don't feel good about yourself, you freaking hold on to that moment of joy because you have nothing else. And of course, you've spoken about this so much, but the manipulator knows what they're doing. They know they just have to give you enough just to keep you there, to keep you where they want you to be. And when they start to feel you, you know, pull away, they'll then leave another breadcrumb.
Yeah, so they do this push-pull thing. Push-pull. And they push you away, and then they pull you back. And that's part of this thing, and we didn't even get a chance to talk about this when I was on your show, but they do this thing because they release enough serotonin, whatever, in your brain, and then you become physiologically addicted to them, right? And so back in you go, looking for that hit. It's almost like a drug addiction.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, it's crazy how it's like, it's the ups and the downs. And it's like the highs were so high.
Right.
But the downs were so down, and
Exactly.
it would turn on a freaking dime.
Exactly.
And I used to think that was healthy because also I saw that being modeled growing up, not with my own parents because they actually split up, but with so many other relationships. I just saw that that's how it was. And so you have a misconception of what love actually is. And so my misconception was that it's the highs and the lows.
Yeah. And so did it take like every ounce of willpower you had to like walk away? Or?
Yeah, it was definitely, so it was like walk away, and, you know, probably in hindsight, it was like I walked away for a day, and then I walked away for a week, and then I walked away for a month. And I started to walk away more and more, right? He would lure me back in. I'm so sorry. It would become the tears. I love you. I didn't know what I had until you left. But all the words you actually want to hear. And the thing that I think allowed me to finally leave was I just built my self-esteem. I just built my own confidence to the point where when he came back, I'm like, this is such bullshit. Like, this is literally the gameplay that we've been doing, the dance, for 3.5 years. And you say to yourself, where's the evidence? And again, I don't think I could articulate this well back then, but where's the evidence that you've actually changed? Because change requires change of habits.
Right.
What change habits had he made? Nothing.
Yeah.
It was the fact that I'd left him, the emptiness that he felt, and that dread of, oh my God, what if she leaves me forever? So that final goodbye, it was interesting because that final goodbye was very easy for me. But it had been a year of a week apart, a month apart, a month apart, a month apart, you know, back and forth. And then that final time, it was like I just knew. I was like, oh, this old shit again. He hasn't changed at all. Bye. And it felt so beautiful, because I'd finally let go of what I'd been holding on to.
Yeah.
But I actually don't know if you know, but then on my wedding night, he threw a brick through my car window.
No.
So a week before my wedding, he reached out to me and he was like, I really want to meet you. I was like, no, sorry, I'm getting married in a week. Like, I do not want to talk to you anymore. And then the night before my wedding, there was a brick through my car window.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow. That is wow.
So my poor mum ended up literally on the night before my wedding staying up to have like the window replaced.
So if you weren't sure then.
Yeah, I know, right? Right, exactly. Like, oh, let me take you back, please.
Yeah.
But,
oh, wow. Oh,
but
my
that
God.
actually then I think becomes that moment of like peace that you then have.
Yeah, like, oh yeah.
Thank God
Definitely.
I left. Yeah, because this could have gone awry.
So much so. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So then in your book, you also talk about taking responsibility for your part in these types of relationships, right? And you talk about it in terms of not saying, hey, I'm responsible for this other person's behavior. Because yes, you can all, it's very empowering to say that person is a bad person and they're toxic. And of course you can, and I talk about this a lot with my community and say, they're a bad person. Yes, they're a bad person. But there's also a lot of empowerment in saying, you have to say a lot of it is on me. And then also separating out the shame piece of it too. And I love that you talked about that in the book and why you want to say, part of it is my responsibility because of that empowerment piece. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was actually the enlightenment piece came with my health, and that was really where it first started. So I had just had massive gut issues. I was suffering really badly to the point where I could barely eat anything. I was like 20 pounds lighter than I was now. It was just gastric trauma. And I went to every doctor. And I was like, please fix me, please fix me, please fix me. And every doctor was like, oh, I can fix you, Lisa, take this pill. Oh, I can fix you, Lisa, do this, do that. And everything I was trying, I was just getting worse. And every time a doctor would suggest something, I was like, that doesn't sound right. Like my gut almost like had a visceral reaction, but I ignored my gut. I literally just ignored every sign that my body was trying to tell me. And I would blindly listen to these people who had a, expert, quote unquote, because that's what I learned growing up. Everyone knows everything about you, Lisa, better than you do, right? A doctor knows more about it. It's like, well, no, hang on. Actually, now I realize no one knows you better than you. But I wasn't listening to my gut. And so eventually, because I was so sick for so long, I couldn't even stand up for longer than 5 minutes at a time. It was that bad. When I finally realized, hang on a minute, you need to listen to yourself. You need to actually listen to what's happening to you. And that pivot made me not stop listening to the doctor, but just assessing the information coming in. Then when I started to assess the information coming in and started to assess what my body was saying, I started to backtrack of how did I even get here in the first place? And instead of beating myself up over the fact that I was here, actually just without judgment, Lisa, without the shame of being so sick, especially because I had, $1 billion nutrition company at the time, that was the last thing I wanted to voice out loud was like, right. I'm so sick, I can't even eat our product. Like I was embarrassed, I was ashamed.
Yeah.
And so I just had to, without judgment, assess. And once I started backtrack, oh, Lisa, at the age of 16, you had a very unhealthy relationship with food. You chose to stop eating fat because you were so scared of getting fat. You chose to stop eating carbs because you were so afraid of eating carbs. Now, I saw that modeled to me by my mum because she was borderline anorexic. But what does it do to me? How does it empower me to blame my mum? It doesn't. At the age of 16, I was old enough, I think, to know what I was doing. Now, that isn't to say shame on you. It's to say, okay, just without judgment, assess where you were and how you got here. So that was the one piece. Then the next piece was, excuse me, let me just clear my throat. The next piece then was, I was getting sick. Now, what I didn't understand as well back then is that antibiotics basically kill your gut bacteria, and 70% of your immune system is carried in your gut. So now I'm not replenishing my gut. I'm taking antibiotics to kill the sickness that I was having, whether it was the flu or infections, things like that. And I wasn't replenishing. You do that long enough. I was doing that for like 10, 15 years, to the point where I was taking antibiotics 3 or 4 times a year. And so you cut forward, doctor's giving me antibiotics over and over again. And he eventually says, you know, I probably shouldn't give you this many antibiotics. Not once did I ask him why. Not once did I go off and research what does antibiotics do to you. I just blindly followed him. Now, does that empower me or does that disempower me? It disempowers me. It makes me blame everybody else. How does that help me? Mm-hmm. So what I started to do is like, oh, Lisa, this is all your fault. Now, the word fault can absolutely trigger people, and I don't ever want to trigger people. But I think it's very healthy to use language that gets you to act. The word ownership was too light for me. I had to actually say, this was your fault, Lisa, because that stung me just enough to empower me to do something different. And what that difference was is listen to your body, stop taking antibiotics, just now do the research yourself. What does antibiotics actually do to you? Once I started to realize all of that, I was like, oh my God, this mindset, I can think of everything. And now I can empower myself in every way. So now I look back at my old relationship. Instead of blaming my ex for being that person, I say, Lisa, where's your ownership in it? To your point, I can't control him, but I stayed. Now, again, I want to make sure that if you're in an abusive relationship and it's been years, I understand it's not easy, so I do not want to put blame on other people, but I could have made the other decisions. I could have made other decisions, but I didn't. I don't blame myself. I don't shame myself for it, but it empowers me to know that. Why? Because now I'm forward facing. I now know the way I show up every single freaking day is a choice. If someone's in my life and they're toxic, it's a choice that I accept them or I don't. I have to be that harsh with myself so that I never end up back there again. And that is how I really use that mindset to empower me in every decision. Because I can't control how people come to me. I can't control whether somebody tries to manipulate me. I can't control whether someone is in a wolf in sheep's clothing. I can't control any of that. But once I find out that who they truly are, how do I show up? Do I allow it or do I say, hell no, Lisa, you deserve more?
Right. So you can choose to say, I can leave or make a plan to leave.
Yeah.
Right? And the beautiful thing is you don't have to take on the shame. Mm-hmm. And that's what I love about your book. You talk about how you can say, I can choose now to make a plan or whatever it is, but you don't have to take on the shame.
Yeah, one of my favorite phrases that I now use in any moment, because it's not like I don't feel it, right? Like sometimes it comes because I can't control it, right? It's what I call, like I like to be emotionally sober, and when you're not emotionally sober, what do we all do? So think of it like alcohol, for instance, right? You have a shot of vodka. What do? You have 2 shots of vodka, 3 shots, 4 shots. Eventually, you have enough shots. You don't act in accordance, right? Maybe you kiss the bouncer on the way out, right? Like, of a party or something like that. But you don't act in accordance to who you truly are. I think of that like emotions. You have enough shots of anger, enough shots of frustration, enough shots of shame. You don't act in accordance to who you truly are. So what I say to myself in those moments where I'm feeling the shame or the guilt, or I always have them, like I'm just like everybody else. All I ask myself is this: does this serve you? Does this serve the person you want to be? Yes or no? And the truth is, when I can just answer it no, I can say, okay, this is a momentary emotion that you're having, or this is a momentary response that you're having. But the shame doesn't serve you, Lisa. The shame doesn't serve you empowering other women. The shame doesn't serve you to build a company. The shame doesn't serve you to build a show that then, can reach millions of people. The shame doesn't serve you.
Right.
So even though I feel it, I'm not going to act in accordance of my shame. Most people, when they feel shame, they're going to retreat. But what I do is go, okay, it doesn't serve me, keep going.
Yeah. I mean, so I love the fact that you were like, you can take responsibility, but don't take on the shame.
Yeah, 1,000%.
Yeah.
Because people think that if you take the responsibility, you have to take on all the shame and guilt that comes with it. And I don't think that that's true. I think you can really piece them apart.
Yes, I love that. I love that. And so since you went to the emotionally sober, emotionally drunk thing, let's go there, because I love that you talk about that in the book too, because that is such a fantastic piece to talk about with high conflict personalities, with narcissistic personalities, because they do try to trigger you. They do try to get under your skin. And especially when you're trying to be confident and you're trying to be radically confident, you have this concept of being emotionally sober. And I remember seeing an expert one time on brain health, and he was saying that probably the most difficult, but probably the most important skill that a human could possibly have is to be in control of your emotions. Mm-hmm. And so I love that you put this in the book.
Thank you.
And so talk about this in terms of not just for yourself, but being triggered by others, and what you mean by being emotionally sober versus emotionally drunk.
Okay, yeah, I love it too, because it's such a game. I can get carried away with my emotions. I can let my emotions lead me. And I've learned it doesn't ever serve me. It doesn't serve anything that I do. So how do I combat it? Because if it's a natural inclination, I can't will it out of myself. So I just go, okay, this is a part of you, but how do you make sure that it doesn't lead you? So I just have to identify what those moments are. And I usually like to go back in time, because it's hard for me to see in the future, right? Or even now. So I'm like, okay, what are those moments where maybe, can I swear on your podcast?
Of course.
Okay. If I, what are the times that I've just lost my shit? And the moment the next day where I've woken up and I felt badly, and I'm like, oh God, I shouldn't have acted like that. I shouldn't have said that. Great. Instead of feeling the shame, use it as a freaking tool. So because I love movies, I think of it as a script, right? So I then go back in time. I take the scenario where I lost my shit or ended up having an emotional moment that I wasn't proud of, and I then write it as a script. And then I say, okay, what happened? What was the first moment where you felt that internal, like the trigger, that little sting? What did they say? Well, Lisa, they said that you didn't understand. Okay, what's my trigger? Right, I have a trigger of feeling stupid. And so, okay, they said you don't understand. Oh, that's pressing a bit of your button, Lisa. So that's when I started to feel the gut starting to be like, oh, hang on a minute. Then you said this. Then they said this. Then my face started to feel flustered. Then they said this. Then I started to get angry. My tone changed. My voice got at you, right? And you literally write it like a beat, as if it's somebody else. And now you can go back to it. So you've written it all out. You've written all these moments. And you say, cool, what am I going to do the next time someone says this? And it may not even be the same thing, because I think that that's where we get tripped up. It's like, oh, okay, if this person says this, I'm going to learn my lesson. No. It's if you have that turning in the gut, what are you going to do? Because that's a red flag, Lisa. Because eventually that turning in the gut is going to lead to you getting angry. That anger is going to lead to you saying something you're going to regret. So what are you going to do in that moment that your gut turns? What are you going to do in that moment where you start to feel flustered? What are you going to do in that moment where your voice starts to go high? Have actual tactical things that you're going to do in those moments so that you don't succumb to the emotion. Mm-hmm. And so it could be walk away. And I even joke, but it's like hashtag joke, no joke. The truth is, I don't like lying. But the truth is, in that moment, I would rather say, I'm so sorry, I've got a really bad gut, I just have to go to the restroom. Even if I don't, to get out of that situation, because I know where it leads. I know that it leads to an argument and then me being acting in a way that I'm not proud of.
So have a plan.
Have a plan. Literally write out the game plan that now then interrupts that pattern that you've gotten into when something happens.
Yeah. And, something else that you talk about in your book is role playing, having a script.
Yeah.
So can you talk about that a little bit too?
Yeah. Well, is that what you mean? So like.
Yeah. So when you talk about, you actually talk about one of the ways that you can feel more confident in some of the scenarios and situations is actually role playing it out.
Yeah. Because the more you practice, the more confident you get in saying something. The first time that you have to set a boundary, it can be freaking scary. And then your boundary doesn't even really sound like a boundary anymore because you're more like asking, like, do you mind if, please, can you? And it's like, that's not a boundary, right? Like, so saying out loud, what are they going to say back to you? Like, I actually, again, write out screenplays are all the way someone can actually come back to you with a rebuttal, and then what are you going to do in that moment? And I really do think it all stems from knowing your triggers. And this is a key that I've really been focusing on recently, because I don't think your triggers, especially if you're in a relationship, your triggers are your responsibility, not your partner's.
Oh, that is so true. We talk about that all the time. And somebody else's anger is their responsibility, not yours. So if they're going to get upset about it, that's not your problem.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. So what I do in my relationship with my husband, though, is I'll articulate my trigger. So I'll be like, babe, I've got a trigger that I don't like to feel dumb. And so when you say this word, you trigger me. Now, it's my responsibility, because I can't just, don't say that anymore. It's like, well, no, like, I have to work on myself again, and he has to work on himself, but we come together as two pieces of work in progress. And so I'll articulate it. Please don't use this word right now, because right now I haven't gotten over my trigger yet. And so I'm working on myself. So I reassure him, I'm working on my trigger. I articulate what that trigger is. I then communicate words that I would appreciate him not using currently, because I haven't been okay with using this word. And then we just work together. But I work on my trigger, and I have to improve it, so that next time, if he accidentally says it, I don't then spiral out of control again. Because again, that doesn't make for a healthy relationship. And the last thing you ever want is to be in a relationship where you have to be fearful about speaking up or saying something. Right? Because everyone has their own interpretations. We have our own fundamental beliefs. We have our own value systems. We have our own base assumptions. And so a base assumption is, if some person can joke and you can call each other stupid all day and no one cares, and because your base assumption is that it's not a big deal. But for someone who's been teased and bullied and mildly dyslexic, that word really does upset me because I was bullied for it. So you can imagine this one word that really upsets me that he doesn't even think twice about. But it's not like he lives in my world. It's not like he knows in my head how it feels. So he'll say something out of being oblivious to how it impacts me. So I have to articulate how it impacts me, and then I have to work on it myself.
Right, but not everybody is going to know that, because obviously he's in, a relationship with you.
Right.
So you talk about toughening up, Buttercup,
right?
Yes. So, because like I had mentioned to you earlier that my coach had said to me, it's not what other people are saying; it's how it lands for you, right? So sometimes, I always say, like, people could call you a banana, and you'd be like, well, I know I'm not a banana, so whatever, right? But if somebody says, you're dumb, and you know that that's a trigger for you, you have to manage that, right?
Yeah.
But there's also, toughening up, Buttercup, right? So talk about what you mean by that.
Yeah, I think it's because I can be quite sensitive to certain things. And the truth is, especially in a business setting, there's just really no place for that type of sensitivity, because it's maybe a personal trigger from childhood. Now, when you're talking about business, you don't want to be that person that then brings the emotion to the table, because the truth is, whether you like it or not, people now perceive you in a certain way. And if you spiral out of control in a business meeting, if you flip out, that will land on that person and they will remember it forever. And they would, so when it comes to things like that, I have to remind myself, you got to toughen up, Buttercup. Like, I do it in a sweet tone, because I do love myself, but I still also talk harsh to myself. Like, no, you got to toughen up. There's no place to be sensitive here, Lisa. Now, I do think there's a place for emotion, but the question is that on your own, in the corner by yourself, at home, at night, or is it in this board meeting? Because if you're feeling insecure and you're around people that are very confident, that can really impact you. And how then do you show up the next day? You're going to show up even more insecure. And so if you have a dream, if you have a vision of where you want your life to go, how the hell do you get there? Like, no BS, how do you actually get there? And let me tell you, if you break down in tears every time you're in a board meeting, it ain't going to serve your goal, if you're trying to build a business, that is. And so there are moments where you have to self-soothe, and that's why that script is really helpful, because in those moments you have to self-soothe and you have to work through those in your own time, not in the middle of a board meeting or in the middle of a very important situation that doesn't serve you.
Right. One of the things I also like is, I love it about your book, is where you talk about, not apologizing for your existence or whatever. Like there's times that you can say sorry, but there's times that you don't. And I remember that there was a time I was training one of my associate attorneys, as I had my own firm for a long time, and I had several associate attorneys that worked for me, and I was training him to how to present evidence in trial. And I just remember that it seemed like something wasn't going to get into evidence, and so he was trying to get it proffered into evidence, and it looked like it wasn't going to get in. So he basically, by the time he tried to present it to the judge, he was like, "Well, I guess I present this into evidence, Your Honor," and the judge was like, "Denied," and I was like, of course it's denied, because of the way you basically gave up as you were asking. I mean, if you say something with confidence, then you might have had a chance, right? And you were basically apologizing for it. And I love the way you talk about there's a time to say sorry and there's a time not to, right?
Yeah.
So can you talk about that?
Yeah. I definitely believe in the power of conviction, right? That person, it's like you can, with enough conviction you can sell ice to an Eskimo or something like that.
Yeah, whatever you say it with authority, and people will believe you,
exactly.
Right?
Now the problem is with social media, everyone's like, I'm not going to apologize, you don't owe anyone an apology. And I think that people have got it twisted. I think you absolutely should say you're sorry when you actually mean it. But don't say you're sorry if you're like, I've had people on my set, for instance, and we're talking about something deep and they cry and they say they're sorry. I'm like, why are you saying you're sorry? For having emotions? No, this is the safe place. The reason why you're here is to share your story. So please don't apologize for having an emotion that you're now expressing. Same in a relationship with my husband. It's like if we have arguments, we have a rule. Don't ever say you're sorry if you don't actually mean it. Like, don't say it just to settle an argument, because that's what a lot of people will do, right? You say you're sorry, just settle up, fine, I'm sorry. But if you don't mean it, you've just swept the problem under the rug. That's just going to, come out in the wash, come out afterwards. You're going to actually see the truth eventually. So if you don't resolve the issue, then you're never going to be able to get past it. If you just say you're sorry and you don't mean it. And I catch myself, we're so conditioned to say you're sorry for everything. Like, oh my God, I'm so sorry on this. Oh my God, I'm so sorry on this. And it's become so automatic that I've realized it's become automatic, and now I just pay attention to when I say it and if I actually mean it or not. And once I made that flip in my mind of basically demanding of myself, you only say it when you actually mean it, Lisa, I'll catch myself going to say it and then I'll stop. And also, because I'm such a fan of empowering other women, I'll call other women out on it if I'm very comfortable with them and they don't take it as an insult. Actually, sometimes I'll even do it to a woman that's like a stranger. If I find the right vibe, like if she gets my vibe, I'll be like, homie, don't apologize. Like, please take that back. And they're like, oh my God, you're right. And I think it's important for us to encourage each other.
Yeah.
Because what it's saying is, for instance, perfect example, how often do we want to show up for our friends? Right? Of course we want to show up for our friends, but let's say you've had such a rough week, right? You've gone to court and you've just been, you've had a crazy day and it's been really hard, and you come home and you're just exhausted. You've taken care of work, you've taken care of business, maybe you've had to feed the dog, maybe you feed your kids, whatever. And then you get an invite to go out to your friends, a party, let's say. The first thing we'll do is like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, blah, blah, blah. Because all you would maybe want to do is sit on the couch and rest. Why are we apologizing for self-care? Like, what is that actually saying? Because I've had so much health issues, I've realized part of that is the self-talk that I say to myself, that I'm apologizing for not showing up for other people. But what I'm telling myself is that I should show up for someone else before I show up for myself. And once I realized I was apologizing for things like that, I just stopped. And now when a friend asks me to come out and let's say I'm just too tired, I'll be like, I really hope you have so much fun, but I'm actually just going to chill tonight. And I'll still go to sometimes say sorry and I'll delete it. Because again, what is that telling yourself? That other people come before you. Where does that lead? Having gut issues like I've had to deal with.
Oh, so good.
So just assess. And I actually will say, start off with just taking inventory.
It is
just
so
take inventory
good.
of when you say it.
I love that.
And then in my book, I have like other ways of, replying to text messages and things like that so that you don't feel badly. Because it's like, I don't want to disappoint my friend, but I can't apologize for putting myself first.
Yeah, I love that. That is so good. So good, so good, so good. And I love also this whole concept of the inner bitch.
Yes.
Like, talk about your inner bitch.
So I'm sure most people watching this know exactly what I'm talking about, where you have this inner dialogue, this inner voice. And I used to say the bitch in my head, right? She's always like, you're no good, Lisa. What the hell are you doing? Oh my God. So starting this show, the bitch in my head was like, Lisa, people are just going to make fun of how you look, right? Because that's the voice that I've had all along. Lisa, you don't know how to freaking get in front of a camera. You don't know how to be a host, right? She's freaking mean inside my head all the time. And what I used to do is I would tell people, yeah, this inner bitch. And everyone's like, oh my God, you just, tell her to shut up. And I was trying to tell her to shut up. Or like people would even say to me like, you should be kind to yourself. And I'm like, I'm really trying, homie. Like, I'm really trying to be kind to myself, but she won't shut up. It's like a skipped record you can't freaking get to. Like, she just is on repeat over and over. So then I started to feel worse about myself that I couldn't shut her up. And then that didn't serve me because now I feel worse about myself. So I was like, okay, what serves me, right? Going back to like, does this serve me? Yes or no? It didn't serve me. So how can I reframe this? And I was like, okay, take inventory. What is she saying? She's saying, Lisa, you're going to be made fun of if you step in front of the camera. Okay, that's probably going to be right. Because if my goal is to impact people on a global scale, not everyone's going to love you. So even if not everyone loves you, is that more important than your mission to help people? No. Cool. So I'm still going to get in front of the camera. Next bad thing that she's telling me, Lisa, you're bad in front of the camera. Okay, what if she's actually right? I haven't been in front of the camera before. Why would I expect to be amazing about being in front of the camera? So actually, she's just warning me. If she's warning me, could she be my friend? Could she actually be my bestie? Right? And now I was like, oh, my BFF. Like the bitch in my head is now my BFF.
You made friends with her.
Yeah. Or like the critic becomes now my coach. So now what I ended up doing is, okay, what if she's right? Okay, cool. Put in the reps, Lisa. Put in the freaking reps. And now I literally would just listen to her, write it down, come up with a conclusion. Write it down, come up with a conclusion. So it was like, how are you going to start an interview? How are you going to end an interview? Oh, for the longest time, so, obviously you were just on my show, so I ended like, be the hero of your own life. That came from utter fear of, I had no idea how to end an interview. I was like, what do I do? What do I say? Bye. Like, I literally didn't know, because the voice in my head saying, Lisa, you don't know how to end an interview. So she warned me. I then came up with a strategy. I was like, all right, I need a tagline. I just need a comfort zone to go to a tagline that becomes my thing. So I wrote this like, how to be the hero, maybe. And it was a really long line, and then I just shortened it. I then wrote it on a whiteboard, and then I put it under my A camera. So that, because again, I've got a terrible memory, so that when I turn to the camera, it's right underneath. And now, again, my critic became my coach. She helped me listen to what I was bad at, accurately bad at, then came up with a strategy, and I was able to execute the strategy that then allowed me to step in front of the camera in the first place.
So you made friends with her?
Yes, she's my bestie.
Yeah. So I like that because, I'm always like, okay, well, you're going to come along, but, you don't get to, you have to ride in the back seat. You don't get to touch the radio. Yeah. You don't get to touch the steering wheel.
Yeah.
Now shut up.
Yeah, now she's like my automatic pilot, right? Where it's like, if I'm tired, she's got my back.
Oh, all right then. All right, I like that.
And again, it's all just reframing, because it used to hold me back. It used to be crippling crippling on how I felt about myself. And now you can just see by reframing it, I can do it with a smile, I can say it happily, you know, and I've been now doing this for like 4 years. And I wouldn't have been able to do it. I wouldn't have been able to do what I do now if I'd succumbed to that voice in my head.
Yeah, I love that. So talk about how that you teach people how to treat you.
Yeah, this is a tough one. I want to just give a little caveat that if you've been in, you know, a psychological or physical abusive relationship from childhood, like it's very hard to kind of just say, well, you've taught them how to treat you. Like I want to be very delicate there. But at least my own experience, I just realized that I wasn't putting up boundaries. I wasn't saying no. And so the more I was getting frustrated with other people, like, I can't believe they disrespected me. I can't believe they said this to me. I can't believe, you know, all of that. It was like, well, hang on, Lisa. You haven't said no. You haven't said, hang on, that doesn't jive with me. Or, hang on, you don't get to talk to me like that. You've never once said that, Lisa. And so the reason why they keep talking to you like that is because you allow them to. And so once that became the recognition, then it became, how do I set boundaries? How do I do them with confidence? And I was terrible at setting boundaries originally. Like, it was just like, okay, I didn't have enough courage to, so I would go in like a bull and be like, don't do that again. Or like, don't, you know, and it was like, now you from the outside, people would then perceive you as aggressive. And again, that I didn't want people to perceive me as aggressive. Like that wasn't accurate to how I actually felt. It's just I was just so insecure to set the boundary in the first place. So I just like reassessed, how do I set a boundary? Now obviously there's so many amazing books out there. Boundary Boss, Terry Cole's amazing. And it's really just step by step of how you set these boundaries so that people no longer get to treat you poorly. You know, I had a neighbor once that was very inappropriate. And originally I was just like, maybe he's just being nice. And then maybe it's like, was that a little inappropriate? And then I was like, I just didn't say anything. And then he became more inappropriate. And he was married too. And so I would tell Tom, I was like, babe, I can't believe this. You know, and he's like, well, what did you say? And I was like, well, I don't know. Was I imagining it? Because how many of us ask ourselves that, right? Am I going crazy? Is it just me? Is it really happening?
Yeah.
And so I then wrote out, the next time, Lisa, he says this, you're going to reply with this. So I actually had, again, going back to a script, I had like a whole script of how I was going to respond. And I didn't like the idea of me feeling crazy. And so I just remember saying, the next time he actually says certain words, I'm going to call him on the words that he uses. So now it's not all in my head. So he once was very inappropriate and he was just like, you know, very flirty. And I was like, I'm sorry, but when you say this, and I just repeated what he said to me, when you say this, I perceive this as inappropriate as a married woman and as a married man. Please do not ever say that to me again. And so that allowed me to use his words as the proof of what I no longer will accept from him. And I said it very politely. I said it very calmly, because that's also the key, is that I had eventually learned. If you just come at someone loud and aggressive, they're either going to meet you there or they're going to dismiss you.
Oh, 100%. Because then you've lost control.
Exactly.
As long as you are stay in control, then you're in control, right? Yeah. But it's the minute you are emotional, especially as a woman, because then they just see you as emotional, hormonal, all of that.
Yeah, 1,000%. And what's interesting in that, even with you saying that, sometimes I will ask myself, is it actually hormones, Lisa? Because that's also, I always like to play devil's advocate even with myself. Because the truth is, I'm sure you've been hangry before. I'm sure everybody listening.
Everybody has, yeah.
You act out of alignment with who you are, just because you haven't eaten. So now imagine it's a certain time of your cycle, which can be very true. Maybe you're tired, maybe you're stressed, maybe you have a lot on. Maybe you are acting out of alignment. And so when someone even says that to me, I'll take inventory. But now I know my body so well and I know myself so well, I can easily rebut things, because I'll actually say, actually, yeah, I'm quite tired. I am a bit irritable. I apologize for snapping at you. Like, I'm so aware of my body and how I react now, and my diet and how I work out and my body temperature and how I sleep. Like, I'm a little obsessed with all of that. So I also don't just dismiss when someone says that. But I do know over time you start to learn when someone's using it as a manipulation tactic or they actually care about you. Like, if someone really cares about you, they're not going to be like, you're hormonal. They're never going to say it like that. They may say, like, is everything okay? Because this isn't normally how you behave. You know, and when someone says that to me, normally my husband, if he says that to me, because I care about him and I love him and he loves me and he cares about me, we have this mutual agreement that we are always going to be honest with each other and that we have to do this self-assessment. But when it's a stranger and they throw that at you, typically they're saying that to try and shut you down. And if you can stay calm in that moment when someone's trying to shut you down and they're like, are you just on your period? You can actually say, actually, no, but thank you for asking.
Oh my God.
Because again, if you escalate, you get dismissed. Like whether we like it or not.
Oh yeah, especially as women.
Mm-hmm.
Especially
of
as
course,
women.
Yeah.
Because I think women are treated like that even when you're trying to be. I mean, I know, you know, as a female attorney, it has happened to me even now, you know.
Mm-hmm.
In different situations.
Which is
frankly.
heartbreaking, right? Because your career is so freaking insane. And I bet you, people...
Well, I mean, I'm not practicing now anymore.
No, I know, but
you know, even now, in my life now, when I'm negotiating contracts or in certain situations, I find myself, you know, marginalized because I'm a woman.
Mm-hmm. And it's. I think once I can step out of those moments, be like, oh, it's about them. They literally have no other rebuttal or comeback, if you will. So they're going to use the easy target. And so almost like I kind of just laugh at them. I was like, wow, you're that petty?
Yeah.
Less.
But then you stand in your power and you know what, I mean, now I do. Now I know what to do about it.
Yes. And if you don't know how to stand in your power, then it can destroy you and it can make you second guess yourself and it can make you retreat. And homie, anyone listening right now, do not freaking retreat. Like you just can't. You can't allow that to let you to play small.
No, you put your bad bitch boots on.
Yeah, you do.
So talk about that.
Yeah, so that's really the chapter, get off the couch and put on your bad bitch boots. It's really about motivation. Because even anyone listening to us now, right, they may be empowered. They'll be like, hell yeah, I've listened to these amazing women. I'm going to go out, I'm going to crush it. Motivation only lasts a certain amount of time.
Right.
And so you need to identify what are the things that you can go to that make you feel like a freaking badass no matter where you are.
Right.
No matter what's happening in your life, how do you show up every day? And so for me, it was the hair and even my watch, and I wear Wonder Woman. My Wonder Woman necklace actually was very important to me because I was scared shitless to get on stage. And I'm very grounded in my mission and helping people. So when I was shitless to get on stage, I kept saying no to people about any speaking gigs. I was like, no, are you joking? Why would they ever do that? Why do people do that to themselves? Hell no. And then again, I always call myself on my own excuses. And I'm like, well, Lisa, is getting on stage going to empower people or not empower people? Okay, it's going to empower people. So you're really just doing it because of your ego and because you're scared about freezing on stage. Yes, that's very true, but the ego is very loud and the fear is very real. So I don't want people to dismiss that, right? I don't when people are just like, oh, ignore it and do it anyway. That's wonderful, unless you've been someone like me that really feels the freaking fear. And so I said, okay, I know what my mission is, but I'm holding myself back. How do I just keep moving forward? What are the tools that I can actually use, that I can now put in my tool belt, that in moments where I don't feel great, that I just need that extra motivation, what can I do? And so I just understand the role of habit creation and the importance of the message you tell yourself. So for instance, how many people walk past the mirror, especially women, when you're by yourself and you're naked, let's say you just got out of the shower, and you go, oh shit, well I hate my ass, or oh God.
Yeah.
It's all in the head and it's so automatic for me, I didn't even realize I was doing it. So it was the combination of how do I give myself a different message when I look in the mirror? What is a habit I can now perform for myself and build to empower myself? So I love Wonder Woman. So I bought this Wonder Woman chain and I was like, okay, if I just put it on every day for 30 days, let's say, and every time I put it on, I'm looking myself in the mirror. Instead of insulting myself, I say, you're a badass like Wonder Woman. You're a badass like Wonder Woman. So I do that for 30 days. And now this was 8 years and I still wear my Wonder Woman necklace. Maybe not eight years, but I still wear this. So I was like, oh, wow. Well, if I can do that for my necklace, what else can I do? So I love these big watches because it reminds me, as I suit up, if you will, to be confident.
It's like her gold.
Yeah. Getting in
her
front of the camera, I do have to suit up. My team already know. I literally walk on with earbuds most of the time, listening to an empowering song. because it gets me really revved up. Because sometimes I don't feel great about myself. Sometimes I don't feel confident. Sometimes I may feel intimidated by my guests, like, because they're so fucking amazing that my own insecurity, I feel intimidated. Not about them, it's about me. How do I make sure that I still freaking show up? I have to get all these tools that I put together, that I assess. Now look, these are the tools that work for me. But what works for you? You have to like refine, test a bunch of stuff. And so I have these black boots that I call like my bad bitch boots. And just by giving them the name, I literally just made them up. They're my bad bitch boots. Cool. What if you call them this, Lisa, and you put them on? Are you going to feel like a freaking badass? And that's what I started to do. And so now I just go, these are my bad bitch boots. Every time you put them on, Lisa, you're going to feel freaking amazing. Listening to music is another thing. Music is so, like, some people get, I think I have like a weird, maybe an extra receptor or something about music, but like I can get.
Oh yeah, me too.
Oh God.
Yeah. There's some really good playlists on my Spotify. Yeah.
So like I pulled up Survivor by Destiny's Child, and I listened to that.
I love that too.
I started to listen to that after someone stabbed me in the back, metaphorically of course. Totally like brought me down, tried to like really tear me apart, and I was like, no, I just can't let this.
I'm a survivor.
Yeah, I'm a survivor. And you listen to the lyrics, and it's like, you think that I'm only going to do this, just watch me, right? I can't remember what lyrics right now, but
yeah.
And so what I would do is I'll pull up the lyrics, because now on Spotify you can click that lyrics thing, and the lyrics come up, and I just sing. And you better believe I put on my bad bitch boots, and I put on Survivor, and I look at those lyrics. I feel better about myself.
I love it.
And so I just urge people that in those moments, it's going to take time. It's going to, it doesn't have to be boots. It can be slippers, like whatever it is that makes you feel great. But then I also realized on the other side of it, just to kind of give the juxtaposition, is that it also built me up so much from a strength position. I actually lost a part of my femininity. Because I was very much in my masculine. When you're building a company, Quest was growing at 57,000%. So that took us from 0 to $1 billion company in just 5 years.
Yeah.
Like, that is really freaking hard.
Rocket growth.
Yeah. And so I went from being the stay-at-home wife for 8 years, just literally being the boss of my 2 dogs.
That's right.
To then, all of a sudden, I felt like I blinked, and I was overseeing 40 people in just my department alone, and a lot of them were ex-convicts. Because of where we started our company, my husband used to volunteer and do Big Brother for a kid in the inner city. And so we really believed in giving every single person a chance. I don't care where you come from. I don't care what your background is. Who are you showing up to be today, and who's the person you want to become? And so we just put a blast out, and we're like, we don't care if you've got a criminal record. If you come in and you truly want to work hard, we'll give you a chance. And so because we were in manufacturing, and I was originally in our shipping department, I had a lot of 6'5" dudes who were ex-convicts.
Yeah.
And I'm, a 5'1" Brit. It sounds like Mary Poppins sometimes. So that's what they used to say to me. You sound like Mary Poppins. And so I had to harden up. So I did all this skill set, right? All these things that I was just talking about. How do I get harder? How do I show up? How do I build more confidence? Because I can't have my team look like I'm weak, because they're just going to walk all over you. And I built up that so much that I realized I'd lost this other part of me. So just like you can suit up and put on your bad bitch boots and your Wonder Woman necklace and all of that, I realized that undoing that as well also helped me come into my feminine again. So I've got fluffy Wonder Woman pajamas, I've got like a pink scrunchie that I wear, and I literally, when I want to transition from being in work mode to being in a beautiful, soft, sweet mode that I want to be in, I just have this way of transitioning. And so I'll listen to different music, I'll wear different clothes, I'll wear different fabrics. And that really, over time, just becomes like, you have to know thyself. And so everything, again, that I'm saying is just my ways that I was able to do it. And so just know thyself, try a bunch of things. And I realized, oh, I actually can do this. And I can now have control of how I shift.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I talk about the clothes that you wear and how they affect your psychology. I mean, and so I think that that's so powerful.
Yeah, could you imagine showing up in court in like flip-flops and like...
Oh, I've seen attorneys do it.
Have you? I mean, maybe they feel empowered by it.
No, I don't think so.
Oh. Okay, well, there you go.
I don't think so. But yeah, I definitely know that it makes a difference.
Yeah, I've got onesies that I love putting on. Like, those are cute. I love putting those on.
I think it's awesome. Okay, so How can you be the hero of your own life?
Oh, yeah, such a great question. So this actually stemmed from in my really early days of being sick. So when it felt like my gut erupted. It was obviously a period of overtime, taking the antibiotics, but it all just fell apart like that in one day. And I was really sick, like really sick. I couldn't eat barely anything. And I always turn to my husband. You know, my husband's very supportive. He's the most beautiful, gracious man. And so he was always there for me, always. And we work from home, and we have a team that works in our house. And I was in the middle of a photo shoot. And in the middle, me and my husband actually have a rule that you can call me and I can ignore your phone call. You can call me twice and I can ignore it. But if you call me 3 times, it means if I'm interviewing Oprah Winfrey herself, I gotta say, sorry, my husband's calling me. Because that means it's freaking emergency stilo. So we've already got this agreement. So I'm really sick. I'm in the middle of this photo shoot. No one knows how sick I am because as women, we always try to show up strong. So I didn't tell the team how bad I was. And I was in the middle and I could barely breathe. And I was like, I'm so sorry, guys. Remember how I said lie? I was like, I'm so sorry, guys. I just got to go use the restroom. I went upstairs and I just fell to the floor because I couldn't even catch my breath. I was in so much agony. And I had my phone next to me and I just called my husband. And I was like, all right, 3 rules. He's going to ignore the first one because I knew he was somewhere in the house in a business meeting. So I call him once. He doesn't answer. I call him twice. He doesn't answer. I call him 3 times. I'm like, I know he's going to answer. He doesn't freaking answer. So here I am on the floor, holding my phone going, well, shit, I need him to come save me. I need him to come help me. I need him to, and I realized, oh, hang on a minute. I need him. Do I need him? No, I want him. I don't need him. Lisa, you're the hero of your own life. Get the F up. And I got up and I took deep breaths and I swallowed some water. And I got downstairs again and I finished the photo shoot. And my poor husband, after the 3 calls, he came running to me, right? He was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And I was like, it's all right, babe, I got it. And he's like, what happened? And I tell him the whole story. Obviously, he had to go through his own emotional turmoil because he felt like he wasn't there for me. That's a whole different story. But after that, I was like, babe, you do not have to apologize. Like, I am so freaking glad you didn't answer because in that moment now, anything I struggle with, anything, I don't look outwards. I don't look at how someone else is going to help me. I go, how are you going to save yourself, Lisa? You are your own damn hero. And we were talking about this on, when you were on my show, but that the power of the mind, it has shifted the way that I act completely. And it is so empowering for me. And because I love movies and because I love storytelling, it was such a beautiful analogy to say, hang on, you are your own hero, especially because I love superhero stuff. It's like, no, you've got your own cape. Like, you get to put on your cape. You get to fly.
Yeah. I love that. So where can people find
dude, thank you so much for this. This was so fun. So you can find me at Lisa Bilyeu on Instagram, on YouTube. I'm Lisa Bilyeu, and my book is called Radical Confidence. You can find it anywhere.
Yes, and of course we're going to put everything in the show notes. And this is just absolutely fantastic. And everyone knows that today is a great day to start negotiating your best life. Wherever you are is the jumping off point. It is never too late. And I'm so honored that, Lisa, that you joined me here today.
Oh my God, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. This is fantastic.
Go and be the hero of your own life, people.